Shields. An iconic staple of hand-to-hand combat representing superb defense and sometimes patriotism and pride for one's own country. These weapons of defense are so well known that they have made many appearances in pop culture, being wielded by the mightiest of superheroes and soldiers alike. Some well-known shield users include Captain America and his unbreakable vibranium shield from the Marvel Comics, Link's Hylian shield from Hyrule from the Legend of Zelda games, and even Wonder Woman's shield, alongside her Lasso of Truth from DC. Although not very effective in terms of offensive capability, they command respect and represent the ability to endure anything thrown at them. They've even stood the test of time, being used countless generations after weapons like swords and crossbows have grown obsolete. Although shields are more widely known for their fictional use, their non-fictional use better highlights their practicality and capabilities in my humble opinion. Over the week, I decided to make a Roman and Celtic shield using plywood, wires, sticks, spray paint, and whatever else I could find at Lowe's and Michael's. I began with the Celtic shield since I thought it would be the most difficult shield to make, and then I made a Roman shield, which was slightly easier to make in comparison. Without further ado, here is the entire process of me cutting wood, making measurements, bending wires, and burning myself, both with hard work and a hot glue gun. Before any building of any type could commence, I first had to fulfill the American dream by buying a lot of stuff that I didn't have. Some stuff that we did not have included red, bronze, yellow, and silver spray paint, some white primer, a large stick, some sandpaper, and a large 40 by 40 inch plywood, and some putty that we ended up not using for some reason. Minus the power tools and some of the other stuff that we already had at home, I ended up spending a grand total of... Yikes. No wonder the Romans didn't pay their soldiers. After spending my life savings on materials, I moved my dad's truck out of the garage in order to have more space to work with. Next, I stole this folding table and set it up in my garage where my dad's truck used to be. Now that I've established a place to work, it's time to put on all my safety stuff. Remember the giant plywood I mentioned earlier? Here he is now. He looks exactly the same. Since the height of the shield was already the same as the plywood board, all I needed to do was measure out 17 inches of width to cut off from the board. After making some more marks at 17 inches wide, I used this bubble device as a straight edge in order to draw a line straight down the board. This is in preparation for the electric saw that I'm about to use to cut it. Due to how the electric saw is made, I have to prop it up against something 1.25 inches away from the desired cutting point. I'm doing this using the bigger bubble machine and some clamps. Now that that's all sorted out, I use the electric saw to cut down the board. From here, the next step is to round out the corners instead of having them sharp. I did this using this triangle ruler here to draw 5 inch by 5 inch squares on each corner of the board. Then, I used a compass to draw circles on all 4 corners, and then used the saw to cut around them. Right after that, I sanded down the corners and some of the edges of the board to not get any splinters. From here, the next step is to determine where this plastic bowl thing will go. This will determine where I put the hole in for my handle, and where the shield boss of the shield will be. Next, I use the measuring tape to determine where the center of the shield is on different spots, so I can add in more circles for more decorations later. Not wanting to ever use a compass ever again, I used some random circles that I found around my house and then eyeballed it from there. I drilled, sawed, and then sanded a big hole in the center of my shield so I could prepare to put in the handle later. I then cut off a big section of this big stick with this big saw. Then I used the little saw to cut little indents into the little stick. Now I have this little stick wedge piece that I can put into my shield like this. However, I won't attach it yet, just for convenience sake. What I'm doing right now is getting some straightened wire and gluing it into the shape of a circle onto the board with this hot glue gun and this hammer. I had to repeat this process several times on different parts of the shield. I had to make one outer circle and one inner circle to stay true to the Celtic design. Believe it or not, this was probably the most annoyingest part of this assignment. Next, I finally glued in the plastic bowl shape that I cut out earlier. I also added one more wire circle to add support and more decoration to the shield. Off topic, but the wires that I bought were originally packaged in coils, making them impossible to use for any type of decoration. Because of this, we came up with the jankiest way to straighten any type of wire out. Right now, my dad is holding on to the other end of the wire for his life, and I am straightening it out with a hammer. I then bent all the straightened wire into these squiggly shapes so that they could be attached to the shield for more decorations. Then I repeated that about 10 more times. After many hours of bending wires and some very sore fingers, I put all the wires in place to where the Celtic shield would accurately be, and afterwards I secured them in with a hot glue gun. After all this, I finally decided to add in the handle. First, I used this normal drill to drill through the shield and through the wedge piece that I made earlier. Then, I used the impact drill and some screws to secure the handle piece to the rest of the shield. Off camera, I covered the entire shield with white primer. Then, after the primer dried, I colored it with some metallic bronze spray paint. You will see the finished result a little bit later. Now that we're finished making the Celtic shield, it's now time to make the Roman shield, which is arguably a lot easier to make. I'm gonna speed run through this because I'm tired of recording. Instead of 17 inches for the width of the Roman shield, I cut the Roman shield with a 22-inch width with the same height. Then, I used the electrical saw the same way I did a few minutes ago, involving the bubble device and some clamps. And then... I found the center of the shield and then planned where the plastic bowl would go, and then ignored the corners because we wanted to keep them sharp. I sanded them down so we wouldn't cut ourselves, did some big cutting using the big stick, and then did some more cutting using the smaller stick. I attached the shield handle to the shield using drills. I covered the entire shield with some white primer, then red paint, then used stencils and paint lines with green decorations to paint them yellow, and then I used masking tape to paint the center of the shield pommel in metallic silver, and then voila! I'm finally done with the Roman shield. You have no idea how long it took me to record this specific part because I had to talk so fast. Oh god, I'm tired of recording. Now that I've completed making 2 shields, I think at this point the best course of action is to see what they look like in action.
Test your might. Test your might.
捨てては見つけ安らか